Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and boy, we got some great guests today, and first of which is I'm so delighted and honored to have back with us today Dr. Jack Cashill. He's a regular contributor to WorldNet Daily. You probably have read some of his articles. Emmy Award-winning independent writer, and I'm delighted to talk to him about all the things going on concerning gun control. By the way, you may want to get a copy of his book, If I Had a Son, Race, Guns, and Railroading of George Zimmerman. There's a picture of that. Those watching on theDove TV can see that. You may want to get a copy of that book, and we'll talk to him about that a little bit later on. So, Jack, nice to see you. Merry Christmas, my friend.
Oh. By the way, I will be premiering my book TV event on Saturday, 1 p.m. your time.
When's that again? I'm sorry.
It's 1 p.m. West Coast time, Pacific time. The book TV premiere of If I Had a Son. Okay,
great. Well, congratulations. That's wonderful. Well, listen, we're watching the continuation of more gun control, and Schumer's now pushing for it. What's your take on this?
Well, you know, there's an element of opportunism, especially among like New York State senators who don't understand the way the rest of America thinks. You know, I grew up in New Jersey, and I just spent Thanksgiving with my family. And even though a lot of them vote Republican, they almost to a person don't own guns. And when guns are talked about, they're apprehensive and scared. Like, this is terrible, you know, it's a bad thing. That's the way they think back there. And it's the irony is that they're much more vulnerable to say home invasions and other kinds of street crime than we are, than most conservatives are, who live in the suburbs and rural parts of America. And yet, you know, so they're an easy audience for people like Chuck Schumer, in other words.
Well, this push for gun control is mounting pretty fast. Now, what's happening? Is it in the House right now that they got the bill going through on these so-called plastic guns, or coming out of these 3D printers?
Well, you know, it's well, I just saw a headline today. I know that the House approved the bill that even the NRA approved, and I couldn't tell you what that bill was. I didn't get a chance to read beyond the headline. That was just yesterday. I don't think that's the Schumer bill.
Yeah.
Schumer's looking for something more comprehensive. The Democrats always are. And you'd think they would have been sobered up by the results of the 2000 election, when Al Gore's having championed gun control, cost him his own state, Tennessee. It cost him Arkansas, Bill Clinton's state, and those two states alone could have won him the election.
Wow.
But they did not. And so for a while, the Democrats were mum on the issue. They're much more cagey about it now. But you see how they exploit, like a Sandy Hook,
right?
Shamelessly. Mm-hmm. And you know, like now Obama's encouraging like Sandy Hook anniversary kind of commemorations as a way of promoting gun control as an issue.
Well, Jack, what is the ideological bent behind gun control? Because, hey, I'm in the West. I was born almost with a shotgun in my hand. My dad had me carry a shotgun, empty, by the way, at a young age, as he taught me hunting. I've always been around guns, and I get it. I'm pro-Second Amendment. But there seems to be something else behind this push for gun control. There's an ideological thing or a psychological thing. What is it?
You know, there's many motives. For most Democrats don't think any further than their next election, and if they think it's a winning issue, they'll advance it. I think, though, for the hardcore leftists in our midst, many of whom are pulling strings in the Democratic Party, it's an issue of control. If you take guns away from individuals, we go right back to here are the roots of the Second Amendment. That is, as a way of preventing governmental tyranny. If you're inclined towards tyranny, you know that an armed citizenry is the last thing you want to face. I live in the Midwest, and you know, where most of my friends own guns. When we talk about guns, talk about what kind of guns we have, not whether we have guns. And it would be very difficult in places like where I live or where you live for an ambitious, tyrannical government to have its way. But you take our guns away, and we are much more vulnerable. Mm-hmm. That's at the highest and deepest level of the American left. That's the way they think. For the other 90%, it's just like, can I win with this issue or can I lose with this issue? They have armed guards themselves. A lot of them have guns themselves. You know, they're hypocrites on this issue. But if they think it'll win for them, they'll push it.
All right. Personally, I don't trust Schumer or Harry Reid. So could this get attached to another bill and get snuck through?
I don't think so. Not through Congress. Congress knows that the Republicans in Congress know they start voting for gun control, they're voting themselves out of office.
You think the average Democrat actually understands that?
I don't know. Democrats, if they're in safe districts, they don't care. But if they're in marginal districts, if they're in districts that are, 50-50 kind of districts where they can swing one way or another, they will not vote for gun control.
That has to say a lot about the NRA and its power.
Yeah, the NRA is, I think the left mistakes the NRA, mistakes its power. The power in the NRA comes from its base. That is the people who belong to the NRA, the people who own guns, the people who take guns seriously, even the people who own guns who don't belong to the NRA. Instead, the left thinks of the NRA as some sort of monolithic organization that determines how these people are going to think and acts accordingly. No, I mean, even if the NRA went away tomorrow, the issue wouldn't change much and the voting patterns wouldn't change much.
Well, I often thought of all the issues that this administration has gone after, if they had kept pushing the Second Amendment issue, that would have been the one that could possibly create some kind of an insurrection in our society. But now it might be Obamacare, but but the Second Amendment issue carries with it a lot of volatility. You're
absolutely right, because the people who support the Second Amendment are the people the government fears most, and rightfully.
Yeah.
In Florida, for instance, and I studied this at some depth in writing my book on the George Zimmerman case, there are 1.1 million concealed carry holders. Those are 1.1 million votes against gun control.
There you go.
Sure votes. And they'll vote. And not only will they vote, if you come to take their guns away, many of them, most of them perhaps, will resist, especially if it's seen as an illegal gun grab.
On a sidebar issue, Jack, just for a moment, you probably saw the testimony of the gentleman from the Cato Institute, who basically is saying, since the president is writing law or adding to law that's already been passed, it creates a potential environment that if he's going to disobey the Constitution and the order of law, what's stopping the American people from obeying the law, and therefore whether or not we would register guns at all.
No, that's an excellent point, and I think Charles Krauthammer picked that up as well. We've entered an era of unprecedented presidential lawlessness.
Mm-hmm.
Where the not just the Constitution, which they've always taken, frivolously, but the laws they write themselves, like Obamacare.
Right.
Oh, okay, I think I'll change this. No, you don't get to change that.
Yeah.
Congress is supposed to do that. And even in the House shutdown, Congress was exercising a very lawful prerogative, and that is paying for this fiasco. Democrats should have had a good deal there. They should have taken it. They had saved themselves a lot of heat. Then they could have blamed, they could have kicked the ball down the road and blamed the Republicans.
Well,
we gave them the opportunity. They didn't take it.
In some ways, they're not even doing their duty, because they're supposed to protect and defend the Constitution. And if the president's going to be lawless, why aren't we going after this thing?
Well, it just right now, it's sort of like, when Bill Clinton was president, there were so many scandals, it was hard to know which one to which one to focus on. And now there are so many examples of lawlessness, it's hard to know how to attack it.
Yeah.
For instance, the EPA, I think, is out of control. The disability program is out of control. The Obamacare is clearly out of control. And the Benghazi situation, the IRS, there are so many points of entry that it includes furor. You know what I mean? If it was just one thing we could focus our wrath on, it would be one thing. But there's so many different things. But guns, they know. The smart people in the Democratic Party know is one thing you don't want to mess with.
Before I take a break, I want to head to your book, and we'll cover it in detail on the other side of the break. But before we do, what led you to take on the Zimmerman case? What was it, in essence, that you thought there was something there?
Well, within a month. In fact, I wrote my first article on it, I believe, on April 5th. That was about a month after the case surfaced. And I mean, about 6 weeks after it took place, but about a month after it hit the national news. And by that time, it had become obvious to me that for the first time in the history of American jurisprudence, a state government, as Florida, the Department of Justice, the White House, the entertainment industry, the news media, and what's left of the civil rights movement was conspiring together to send a perfectly and transparently innocent man to jail for the rest of his life. That's when I realized that this case deserved attention.
All right. Were you surprised by the verdict?
No. In fact, I did a lot of media during the summer. In fact, I visited Oregon for the first time in my life this summer, but it's a great, nice state.
Thank you.
I was, because I was visiting a friend, and the whole time I was there, I was on the phone with various media outlets, and they would inevitably ask, this was during the trial, what was the outcome? What's going to happen? I said, well, he'll be acquitted. And they'll say, why? Because I said he's innocent. And I said, Seminole County, Florida, where the trial was being held, is, votes Republican. It's not downtown Los Angeles, and this is O.J. Simpson. Mm-hmm. At worst case, someone's going to hang this, but he's not going to be convicted. I had just come, in fact, from the trial, and it's curious because I was staying with a black friend of mine who lives in Portland, the Portland area, and I could see even though he's an objective, sort of independent thinker, how the media had gotten to him, and I knew if it had gotten to him, it had gotten to a whole lot of other people.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with Jack about his book, and you may want to check it out. If I Had a Son, and then Race, Guns, and the Railroading of George Zimmerman. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Welcome back, and our special guest today is Dr. Jack Cashill. He's a regular contributor to WorldNet Daily. Perhaps you read some of his articles if you go to that website. It's a terrific one, very resourceful. And we're talking to him about now his book entitled If I Had a Son, Race, Guns, and the Railroading of George Zimmerman. And there's a picture of it on the screen. Those watching on the TV can take a look at it. Let me encourage you to get a copy of it because it's got a lot involved here. And Jack was very close to this case and watched it thoroughly all the way through. All right, Jack. First of all, it doesn't appear that Mr. Zimmerman has done himself any favors lately.
No, he hasn't. At least it certainly doesn't appear like he has.
Yeah.
But what's curious about this is that the left, the media and the government, and the government here, both state and federal, tried to railroad. I mean, they tried to convict him of a crime he should never have even been tried for. He never should have been tried for. They did it to appease the mob. And in this case, Al Sharpton was right. He says, if we didn't march, there's no trial. Well, he was right about that. If they didn't march, there would have been no trial because the Sanford police knew from within an hour of the case that he was, it was pure self-defense. Mm-hmm. It wasn't stand your ground. He's getting his head hammered into concrete, and he did the only thing he could do to, preserve his life at that point. Mm-hmm. And so they dragged this guy through 18 months of this horrible ordeal. The new Black Panther Party puts a $10,000 bounty on his head, and the Department of Justice doesn't even blink. They humiliated him. They made him America's #1 enemy. He couldn't go out of his house. The only time he went shopping during that period at the sporting goods store, they followed him, see what he would buy. He bought a bulletproof vest. They destroyed his marriage. They destroyed his peace of mind. And you have to remember that when he started this process, he was a Democrat, an Obama supporter, and a real genuine civil rights activist. These were his people doing this to him. He had worked with the NAACP the year before on a case involving police brutality against a black homeless guy. And Zimmerman took the lead in that case. He was the only white face in the crowd, or white Hispanic face in the crowd, as the New York Times would say. And so at the end of that process, they ruined this guy's life, and now they relish the evidence of that ruination, Mm-hmm. When he misbehaves or when he gets in trouble with his wife or his girlfriend, both of whom, by the way, were trying to sell their stories to the national media even before the stories took place, which was disturbing in itself. But
okay.
Yeah, no, it's bad, and he should be pitied at this stage, not reviled,
So what happened on that fateful night in February 2012?
Well, it's, the police, like I said, they knew immediately. I mean, because as soon as the police arrived, the first thing Zimmerman did is he stood up and he said, he was standing at that point, and he said, "I yelled for help and no one would come help." And then they talked to the one neighbor, Jonathan Good, who testified at the trial, very, straightforward engineer kind of guy, 30-ish. He said, "Listen, I walked out, I saw what was happening. There was a black guy in a dark hoodie on top, pounding away, MMA style, pounding ground. And then and the guy underneath, the white or Hispanic guy in the red jacket, was yelling out, 'Help, help me, help me.' And I went in and called 911. I told them to stop, and they wouldn't stop. I wouldn't call 911. They knew what had happened. That George Zimmerman, like he told them immediately, he'd been bushwhacked, he'd been sucker punched. He was one of the first victims, public victims of the knockout game, which we're hearing more and more about.
Right.
Trayvon Martin circled back. He had 4 minutes to run 100 yards. He didn't. Came back, circled around in the dark, confronted Zimmerman, punched him in the face, knocked him down, and then jumped on top and started wailing away. Zimmerman was doing what he should have been doing. He didn't make any mistakes that night. I mean, he may have been a little imprudent, but he didn't do anything close to illegal or unethical. He was the neighborhood watch coordinator. He sees a guy wandering through the neighborhood in the rain, looking into house windows, not going in any particular direction. He calls the police. He says he looks like he's high or he's up to no good. Well, he was high. We found that out. And he was likely up to no good because he'd been busted recently, Trayvon Martin had, for being in possession of stolen female jewelry and burglary tools. This was not the 12-year-old we saw on TV. This was a 6-foot, 160-pound kid who was a self-styled mixed martial art fighter and was looking to take out his own frustrations on this person that he saw, and that was George Zimmerman.
All right, so the other pieces of the case, it certainly ended up being Second Amendment, but also ended up being a race case. And yet, as you said earlier, he was noted to be a white Hispanic. I mean, there's a new distinction, but that's how it was done.
Yeah, you're right. In fact, you know what they went on, Perry, and this was the terrible irony in this case. If his name had been Jorge Zimmerman or George Zapata, we never would have heard about this case. But for the first week or so, all that the Martin family's attorneys had to go on, and they were the ones who were instigating this, and their public relations guy, was his name, George Zimmerman. And they presumed he was white.
Wow.
They didn't know that his great-grandfather was black. They didn't know that that Spanish was his first language, that his mother had come from Peru. They didn't know any of that. They just thought he was a white guy, and they were going to get him.
Wow.
And the only way they were going to get him was to make a spectacle out of this, make it a political case. Because the Martin family attorneys weren't interested in having him convicted. They were simply interested in getting him to trial. They're civil attorneys. If he gets arrested, he's vulnerable for lawsuits. And that was their strategy. They got $2 million out of the Homeowners Association.
Wow. All right. A couple of weeks ago, Eric Holder, U.S. Attorney, basically saying the investigation's not over. He's still going after Zimmerman. What in the world can he go after him for?
They're trying to, right after the trial. I mean, literally the day after the verdict came in, he spoke to the NAACP in Orlando, which is just 20 miles from Sanford, Florida. And he told them, because they were all upset and angry because they'd been stirred up by the media, which was misreporting, corrupting the case from the beginning. And he said, well, no, this isn't over yet. We still can get him on federal civil rights charges. Yeah, you could, I suppose, but George Zimmerman was may have been the least racist person in the state of Florida. After, when the Justice Department came into the case, a month after the shooting, they sent a whole swarm of FBI agents down to Sanford to interview anyone who was ever anything to do with George Zimmerman, and they couldn't find a single person who'd ever even heard him tell so much as a racial joke. Not only that, at the time of the shooting, he was mentoring 2 black teenagers. He had been, as I mentioned earlier, just a year earlier, had taken the lead in the case to get justice for a black homeless man who'd been punched out by the white son of a police lieutenant. It's like going after, Nelson Mandela on civil rights, or Mother Teresa. I mean, this was as vain a case as there could be, and yet they still continue to dangle that over the heads of Black American, particularly the base, so that the Obama administration is seen as tending to the needs of that base.
Yeah, Holder seems to be bent on racial issues, and I think you make a great point here. He can go after Zimmerman. It may be a waste of time and money and effort, but he still seems to be pretty bent on racial agenda. Can you comment on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when they, when he came into office in 2009. There was one case that had already been adjudicated, and that was the case against the New Black Panthers in Philadelphia for voter intimidation. They had, the case been filed, and they were no-show, so they were guilty. I mean, in a sense, it was they were acknowledging their own guilt, and he threw the case out. Whereas in this case, where there should have been no. Let's face it. I mean, it's an unfortunate statistic, but it's true. There's roughly, for every white person who assaults a Black person, there's roughly 35 Blacks who assault a white person. The numbers are disproportionate, and they're scary, and they're never reported or rarely reported. But if you're going to make a race-based case, you've got to do it across the board. You can't just single out the one time a non-Black shoots a Black person. But you have to understand, too, Perry, is that this happened in 2012. This is an election year. We're in Florida, which is the ultimate battleground state. We have two issues at play, both race and guns. We can excite the minority base on race. We can cite the liberal base on guns. And we know, at least the Justice Department did, that we can stir this all up in 2012 and not have to worry about the outcome, because we're not going to know that until 2013. It's not unlike Obamacare in that regard. I mean, you make all the promises in 2012. But you can't, once you've uncorked this bottle, you can't cork it. I mean, the rage is out there. And so when the verdict came down, which was a totally just verdict, entirely predictable verdict, then the Justice Department and the media encouraged, the minority base to feel outrage, because this was like Mississippi in 1955. Nothing had changed, so we have a Black president, so we have a Black attorney general. Nothing's changed, right? Yeah. That's the message. Yeah.
One last quick question, Jack, before we run out of time. What do you think of the handling of the case by the judge?
Bad. I thought the judge was clearly siding with the prosecution. However, she seemed relieved by the verdict. She was smiling when when the verdict came down. Well, partly it meant that her case wouldn't be reviewed, and she wouldn't have to go through an appeal. Right. But she was giving the illusion of being siding with the defense. But I think secretly, maybe she knew that justice was done when the verdict came in. And
why do you think on the conservative side, the media hasn't been more active on going after Holder and his frivolous racial cases?
Because they're afraid of the race issue. Conservatives are, Republican politicians are. I mean, they don't want to be called racist. They blanch when that happens. There's a few courageous outlets. I mean, WND, World Net Daily, has done a great job reporting on this. And finally, the major media are finally beginning to pick up. Right. Because you're going to render yourself vulnerable if you don't know what's happening out there.
Well, that's for sure. Hey, Jack, you're a delight. Thank you, my friend. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Keep up the good work. We'll have you back soon.
Hey, Perry, thanks a lot, and hello to all my friends in Oregon.
Okay. God bless. I will be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I work at theDove TV. Compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
All right, welcome back. And one of the things that is a must-do on your Christmas list, now I know you got a lot, scratch everything else off and put this on. It's called the Live Nativity in Jacksonville, and I'm delighted to have with us Renee Hewitt, in the studio. Hewitt, and you are the director.
Yes.
You're the one losing your mind right now, trying to pull it all together.
Yeah.
And so it comes up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Give us the details.
Well, it is at Bigham Knoll, and one of the things that I've been finding, I've been passing out posters around Medford and various areas, that there's a lot of people who don't know where Bigham Knoll or even what Bigham Knoll is.
Okay.
So Bigham Knoll is in Jacksonville. And if you need directions, you can go to their website, and they have fabulous directions on how to get there. And it's spelled like Big Ham, Bigham, Knoll,
okay.
Knoll.
And if you're coming in on the main street of Jacksonville, just turn right there at Ray's Market on East E, as in Edward Street, and you'll run right into it.
It's right there, yeah. It's at the end of East E Street.
Yeah. All right, so this has been going on. This is the third year or second year?
Correct, third year.
Third year, and it's a live nativity. How many people you got involved?
I haven't counted, but I know I had about 85 people, volunteers last year, and I know it's more than that because I have a lot of people that are doing only 1 or 2 nights this year. So it's probably closer to 95 volunteers.
That's wonderful.
So.
All right, it's going to be cold. We know that. Bundle up, but that's part of the experience.
Yeah,
even if
it
it's
is.
a little snow, that'll even make it even better. So come on out. They'll get you parked. They do a great job of moving everything around.
Yeah.
You get out of your car, and there you go. What happens? How many stations?
Well, there are 16 that you go through, and at the beginning what will happen is a resident of Bethlehem will pick you up and take you to the census, where you'll one member of your family will fill out the census, and then a guide or a
You're
resident.
not putting that on the Obamacare computer site, are you?
Actually, I think we have better security than that.
There you go.
And then that resident of Bethlehem will take the guests to the only inn that is left for lodging.
Okay.
And which is at the far north end of Bethlehem. So it's a little bit of walk, but what happens is you go through 6 scenes.
16 stations.
6.
Oh, 6. Excuse me.
Six scenes.
6 scenes.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And
Right.
so you have Mary with Gabriel, and you have Mary and Joseph at the inn. You have the shepherds with the angel,
Yeah.
and Mary and Joseph at the stable. You have King Herod, who is quite imposing with the wise men. Yes, and then finally you end up with Mary, Joseph, and Jesus when the wise men finally get to them, and that is the last scene. And then from there, as I've heard you talking about, you enter into the ballroom.
Yeah.
And in the ballroom, there's all kinds of wonderful festivities. First of all, you can get warm.
And you'll want to.
And you'll want to.
Yeah.
But there's wonderful singing going on. There's always something going on the stage. We have new this year, we have a kids craft corner this year.
Oh, really?
So there'll be an area for kids to do crafts. And then there are 5 churches that have kind of been the foundation of this nativity. And they'll have tables all set up, and you can talk to pastors if you have any questions, or they also have goodies at their tables. And Bigham Knoll is also selling wonderful goodies and
Good.
stuff like that.
There you go.
So.
Well, the whole thing is just an incredible experience. And so Friday night from when to when?
Friday night is from 6 to 9.
Okay.
And Saturday and Sunday are from 4 to 8.
4 to 8. So yes, it's going to be cold, but that's part of it. I think you bundle up, you go on out there, and the thing is just, if you haven't been, you're in for a real treat. If you've been, you know what we're talking about. But you just kind of go through there, and you get the full story of Christmas in such a really wonderful way, and then end up there in the ballroom with all the goodies and everything else. You will warm up, and you'll want to warm up.
But you know, it was
you got a
called,
special choir there Friday or Saturday and Sunday night. Yeah,
Saturday and Sunday nights. I think it's right around 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
We've got the NAS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
cute choir director.
Yeah, with a real cute choir director.
Yeah.
Do you know her? You guys should get together.
We have been for 45 years. Yeah. So, well, that's great.
You know, we had people last year. It was cold last year as well. It almost snowed a couple of times last year. But you know, we never had complaints from anyone that went through. There wasn't any complaints on, oh, it was so cold, and
No.
I just didn't want to. What we strive to do is really to immerse you in the story. And because that is happening, the cold doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, it really is a wonderful way to experience the Christmas story, and I just really want to commend you because I know it's a huge thing. You got all these volunteer actors and actresses, a lot of them standing still because they're frozen, basically. We'll put a sheet over your head and call you a shepherd.
There you go.
Do you need any more help?
You know, the only hole that I have left is one shift. I think it's on Sunday. It's to run the sound. It's for one shift on one thing.
Oh.
Otherwise, I filled all my other stuff. There's a narration that plays at each scene. And literally, it's like your iPhone or something. It's a touch screen. And literally, all you do is stand there, and once people are at the scene, you start the sound.
There you go.
That's all you do.
And it starts.
But
yeah.
I have one that's not stationed for
Okay,
one
well,
shift.
if you're a techie,
or you just have a phone that has a touch screen and know how to work a touch screen.
get a hold of Renee. How do they do that?
Yeah, they can give me a call at 541-944-8044.
Well, let me encourage you. It is a fabulous, it's a live nativity scene, and I've seen them done several ways. Some where you drive through, some where you walk through. I like the walk through because I think you get the real slow down. You really get the story. It's told in a very simple and delightful way. And there's so many things to experience out there. Each scene, hats off to you for all the creativity. Each scene, 6 of them, and all the people, and then you end up in the ballroom. So check it out one more time on the days and the time.
So it's this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday is 6 to 9, and Saturday and Sunday is 4 to 8 in Jacksonville. And you know, Saturday is the Jacksonville Victorian Parade.
Right.
So you can hang out in Jacksonville all day if you want. Go to the parade, come to the Nativity that evening.
Yeah, I would recommend you go to the Mustard Seed and have soup.
Yeah.
Their soup is delicious.
Yeah.
Come to the live nativity.
Yeah, there's all kinds of
and
things to do.
And then go down for the parade.
Exactly.
There
You can go to Festival of Trees Friday or Sunday, and then you can do Jacksonville on Saturday.
Oh, a lot of fun.
It's a valley weekend.
Well, thank you. I know you put a lot into it. It's a lot of work, and
I have a lot of help too.
And you can sleep on Tuesday because I know Monday you have to clean up.
That's right.
Okay, thanks for coming in. We'll
You're
be right
welcome.
back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Welcome back, and delighted to have back in the studio with us a gentleman that I've come to really appreciate what he does, and I tell you what, he's impacting lives and changing lives for good, and that is Doug Gould. He's Executive Director of Foundations for Recovery, and love your ministry, brother, and I know that you've brought a special friend with you. How you doing, by the way?
I'm doing
Merry
well.
Christmas.
Very well. Merry Christmas to you, too.
Yeah, by the way, congratulations, newly married, huh?
Yes.
A month?
There is a God. Barbara is a sweetheart. I love her to death.
Oh, that's wonderful.
She's a real blessing.
Oh, that's wonderful. Introduce Dan.
This is Dan Horton. Dan is one of our Foundation for Recovery members, as we call it. Client sounds too clinical, but Dan and Misty came to us back in April of this year, and they were at the bottom of the barrel. They were in the muck and mire of their addiction, and they had lost their home. They had lost the custody of their kids. They had basically came to us at the end of their rope, and they needed help.
Wow.
So
quite a story, Dan.
Yeah, it's been a definitely a crazy ride.
April to now, what happened?
Well, we came to the foundation, had a few setbacks along the way. I'm finally 90 days, almost 90 days, I'm 2 days away from being 90 days sober.
Good.
And, you know, the foundation has done great things. I don't know if I could have done it without the support of my coach and Doug. Doug's kind of become like a
A dad.
An adopted dad to us. Yeah.
Thanks, son.
Yeah. Well, Doug, for those who don't know, give us a synopsis of what you guys do, the Foundations for Recovery.
Yeah, Foundation for Recovery. We offer. We are faith-based. That means when a member or a client comes through our door, we don't turn them away just because they believe different than we do. They're there for recovery, and we offer personalized peer mentoring recovery coaching. Meaning, what we do is we have 26 right now volunteer recovery coaches that have been trained through the Connecticut Center for Addiction Recovery model. And what that does is you take somebody who's been in addiction, get them clean and sober, train them, certify them through the 40 hours and the 80 hours of counseling certification training classes, and then you hook them up with a client that comes through the door, and then you work with them. You work with them one-on-one. Go into meetings, working with them with their 12 steps. And what's amazing about this peer mentoring is because you've got somebody on the other side of the table or the desk that understands where that client has been.
Yeah.
Dan and Misty came into us back in April, but they have struggled through that the entire time. But that doesn't mean we give up on them. We continue to work with them. As long as they are willing to put in the effort of going to meetings and meeting with their coach, we're going to stay with them. And and here's the unique thing. I want your viewers to know this, is that we've only been in existence now a little over 2.5 years. We opened our doors December of 2011. So realistically, we've had 2 years of this. In the latest stats that we've had 257 clients come through our doors. At the present time, Perry, we've had 146 members that are still clean and sober today.
Isn't that wonderful?
That is an astonishing success rate.
That's off the chart.
Absolutely.
Off the chart.
Absolutely.
Now, part of this by the way, the last time I had you and you were doing the fundraiser, how'd that go?
It's going really well. We are right now at the year-end giving campaign that we're trying to raise $25,000. And you know as well as I do, we have to get to a bigger place.
Yeah.
Right now we're in a little 2-room office at Woolworth Building. And we're just trying to reach out to the community and let the community know. What's a nice thing to do, and I just shared this with you before we came on, was that Jackson County Family Court invited us to give a 45-minute presentation. And Susie over there, so we got a chance to share with Jackson County Family Court about what faith-based recovery is and about peer mentoring. And the community is hearing about us.
Well, they have to be impressed with your percentages.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing.
Well, this is something I've said for 30 some odd years, 40 years that I've been doing broadcasting, and that is whatever God saves you from and brings you through, He turns you around and makes you a minister too.
Absolutely.
So this whole mentoring model, I think, is clearly biblical.
Well, exactly, and to touch on that, Romans says that that we all know all the things that work together for good to them that love God. Here's a perfect example: Dan and Misty, who now have come in, and when our donors and our supporters understand this, that we have a widespread epidemic here in our Jackson County with drugs and alcohol. It's astronomical. And we look at that, we say, what is my $25, $50, $100 going to do in this wide campaign? Well, when you take, as an individual like Dan, and you see how God is restoring not only their marriage, because at Foundation for Recovery, not only do we offer personalized recovery coaching, but we offer marriage counseling. Because what happens when you start getting clean and sober? You then have to deal with some of the weaknesses that we have in reference to communication, because all they've known is the drug world, right? And now God is restoring not only him individually, but as a marriage, as a parent, as a husband, and now seeing the kids reconnect with mom and dad. It's just wonderful.
Does the typical holiday create an increase or maybe even relapses?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's you take that client who has been using for many years and has been shunned by the family, and it's lonely. It's a time of reflection, really. But we at the foundation know that, and so we'll try to, as much as we can, take our clients to meetings, making sure they're hanging around us, and that's what recovery coaching does. It's more than just a sponsor. It's going above and beyond the call of duty.
And how do you work the faith element into your program?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had a young person come to me, walking through the doors, and this is what he said to me: Perry, don't tell me about God. I'm not here for that. I said, that's okay. And so we started working on his recovery program. And he told me he was an atheist. I said, that's fine. Now, I'm a hugger, okay?
By the way, today's National Hug Day.
Yeah, it is National Hug Day. So I'm a hugger, and he wouldn't let, I tried to hug him, and he goes, no. Well, after 10 months working with him, he finally started connecting to the fact that, you know what, I believe there is a God. You cannot have recovery without faith. Bill Wilson said it right in 1935 when he wrote Alcoholics Anonymous. Page 54 says this: imagine life without faith. The greatest recovery program of all is Jesus Christ down on that cross and giving us a chance to be redeemed. That's the greatest recovery program at all. But when we connect these young people, and not just say young people, we have ages from 18 to our oldest client who's 58. When you start working on those first 3 steps of the 12-step program, that's faith. And that's what we try to do, is reconnect the client to their faith.
When somebody comes through your door, they've somewhat made a little bit of a commitment that I need help.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a volunteer when they walk through your door?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's probably the big door opener, isn't it?
That's the biggest thing for Dan and Misty. When they first walk through the door, there's a fear element, the anxiety, the wondering, can I even live without the drug or the alcohol? Mm-hmm. And you ask any of our clients, that's the biggest step, just to walk through the door, to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to make an appointment to come see you. We want that. We welcome that. And when you walk through our doors, you'll see the smiles, you'll see the hugs, you'll see people on the other side of that desk who are also in recovery, understanding what the pain and the suffering that you've gone through.
So, how's this journey been for you? I realize there's been some up and downs. So where do you think God's leading you?
It's really been amazing. I used to not have any idea what my purpose was. Just going through life.
Meaningless.
Yeah. And, since I've gotten sober and reconnected with God, He's brought out, for me, I have a purpose now. My purpose is to reach as many people as I can, and my vehicle to do that is music, and that's what I do.
Yeah, Dan's going to play a song here for us in just a moment. We'll end the show with that. What are your needs, Doug? What can people be praying and helping you with as we head towards the end of the year? Like that?
That's Perry. I really appreciate you, and you understand the need that we have, and the need is that we do not charge clients that come through our door. The reason is most of them don't have it anyway. Mm-hmm. Mom and dad have spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on rehab, only to find their young person and their child going back out, or their spouse going back out and using again. We are faith-based. We trust that God will meet our needs. We are in the midst of our $25,000 year-end giving campaign. We need the funds to grow into another building. Mm-hmm. But we know, you know what? On our board, Brad Bills, and I love Brad. Brad and I went to school together, old Black Tornado alumni. Brad gave me a book when I took over the director, and the book was the Spirituality of Fundraising. And in that book, God owns it all anyway. Yeah. God owns it all anyway. So we're just trusting God that if we say 83 cents a day, which is $25 a month, can put somebody in our chair to help us.
I just want to say to our viewers and listeners, if you feel led about this, and everything you do with God and giving should be God-led.
Amen.
And if you feel that tug to help these guys, I can put up my hand. I put up both hands. They're doing it. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it in an impacting way. And this is a God thing that's happened right here in our own backyard. So you get a hold of Foundations for Recovery. You have a website, they can go there?
Yeah, Love Foundations with an S, lovefoundations.com. There's all the information there.
And you can click on there, give through their site, or just give them a call and help them out. All right, Dan, tell us about the song quickly. We only got a few minutes left. I'm going to let you play it here.
Well, the song it's really about how there's really one way. There's really one person that can bring you out of all your pain and sorrow and addictions and afflictions and make you whole again, and that's Jesus Christ.
All right, let's, Dan Horton, who is working there at Foundations with Recovery with Doug, and again, let me encourage you while he's getting set up, pray about supporting these guys and what they do. It's impacting. I could go on and on and on about it, but the bottom line is, look at the percentages. It's working. This program works. And maybe you need to know somebody that needs it, or you want to help them, or maybe you're recovering yourself and you know what this can do. Yes. Give them a call or swing on by. Go ahead, Dan.
For the man who is sinking in the guilt of his addictions, for the woman who has lost herself deep in her afflictions, for the boy who hears the laughing and the hurtful words around him, for the girl who's been convinced she's not beautiful, there is one who can take everything, all the pain around you. Fall to your knees and cry out to him, because he loves us with all our fears and failings. He died for you and me on Calvary's tree. Yes, he loves us, and his love, it is unfailing. Jesus picks us up and carries us when we can't find our way home. So if you're feeling like you cannot win, if you've lost your way, if you carry heavy burdens each and every day, if you don't know who to turn to, he will light your way. So bow your head, fall to your knees, cry out to him today. Because he loves us with all our fears and failings. He died for you and me on Calvary's tree. Yes, he loves us, and his love, it is unfailing. He picks us up and carries us and never lets us go, because he loves us, because he loves us.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.